Grab your cup of coffee. Sit down for a story. Let's all go exploring. Making it after 40. Making it after 40. Making it after 40.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Making It After 40 podcast. I am your host, Lisa Rodriguez. I am an actor and writer who is still trying to make it after the age of 40. On this show, we explore what it means to be an artist trying to make it as a middle-aged person. It's been so long. Have you missed me? I hope you have. I hope that's why I'm still on your subscribe page or whatever you call it. I just want to thank you all for being so patient while I took my hiatus. It was a much needed hiatus. I have started a new job. I am in the office 5 days a week, guys. So it's been a little intense trying to balance, or as our past guest Tish Hicks would say, trying to find the harmony of work and home and kids and passions and this podcast, which is one of those passions. But I'm back. Given my new work situation, I'm going to take it a little slow. I'm going to do every 2 weeks. I will have a new episode for you every 2 weeks, which is a little heartbreaking to me because there are so many people that I want to interview, and I'm just going to have to be patient and pace myself until I find this new rhythm of life and find this new rhythm with this work. I think things will get in flow in probably the next 6 months, and hopefully by January or mid-January, depending on how much vacation I take, I will be back to releasing an episode every week. But for now, we're going to do every other week. And hey, maybe we'll get a bonus episode here and there. Anyway, okay, so this episode is with Mo Perkins. Mo is a director and writer and sometimes producer. Mo is such an interesting person because she comes from such a unique background. She was raised in a commune and then had to have almost like an immigrant experience when her family finally left that commune, and she became a member of, I don't know, the general pop culture infused society where she fell in love with film and storytelling, and I'll let her tell her story. Mo is such a joy, and she has a gentle but strong presence. And if you ever get to check out her work, you can see that in her work and her writing and just the way she carries herself. You know, I speak about it in the interview, but she's got this soft, gentle energy, but she is not to be messed with, and you can tell just from the way she carries herself. So without further ado, please enjoy this conversation with Mo, and welcome back to the Making It After 40 podcast. I'm so glad that you're here with me. Okay, so today on the show, my guest is Mo Perkins. Hi, Mo.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, Mo is a director, a writer, a producer. I said, well, on IMDb, you have produced some.
Out of necessity, I have produced. It is not my favorite role, but yes, I can do it.
But yeah,
many hats.
Your primary thing is directing and writing. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I didn't have the pleasure of watching the full episodes of your show, but I did watch your reels, and I was highly impressed.
Oh. Thank you. That's very nice.
In particular, your comedy reel, the scene that you have from your feature. Yeah. I love that. Well, first of all, oh my gosh, I just lost his name. The
Jimmy
actor.
Simpson.
Yes, Jimmy. Okay, my husband. We're
Jimmy,
big fans.
I knew exactly. I was like, she's talking about Jimmy, because that scene is great, and there's a lot of great actors in that scene. But Jimmy does shine. He does.
Yeah, he really does. My husband loves Jimmy. Yeah. Loves him so much because he's a big fan of It's Always Sunny, and and every time that character comes on the show, he's just like, oh, he's so great. But
well, you can tell your husband he is also just a stellar human being.
Oh, that's wonderful.
He's a very, very sweet kind, talented man. He's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. He's just so like the way he like delivers some of that stuff in that scene, like I could see anybody else hamming it up, but he plays it so straight, and that's what makes it so funny.
Oh, that makes me happy. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But so Mo, I know you through Leonora, of course. Leonora is the great connector of everyone
in all of everyone.
Northeast Los Angeles.
She's amazing. I don't understand, actually. And I feel like, I don't understand how she does it. But she does. She has a little bit of magic, and that is knowing everyone.
Yeah.
That's part of her magic. Okay, yes.
Yeah.
So, Leonora.
Yeah. And then, of course, we're in moms groups together.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is also like a magical space.
I'm constantly grateful for the moms groups. And I feel like it's like having, I don't know, like a secret card in your wallet where you're like, oh, how do I organize this very random travel thing for children? And I'm like, I have experts. Trusted experts online. I pose that question, and I don't know, an hour later, I get 40 really smart, responsible answers. It's a gold mine. I don't know how parents did it without that kind of network.
I know. And even if it's not about kid related stuff, sometimes it's just life stuff. You need the plumber, you need the random tax guy that knows how to do this specific kind of tax. I think somebody was like, hey, does anybody have a babysitter in London?
I know exactly who that was. I think that was my friend Amber. Yes. It's that kind of like you're out on a limb.
Yeah.
You need support, and 50 moms swoop in, and it's really delightful. And I think Leonora was part of the team that started it.
She did start that moms group, and it's great. I cherish it, and I protect it fiercely, because if I didn't have that space, I don't know what I'd do. My family all makes fun of me. They're like, oh, you just care so much about your moms group.
Oh no, my family is grateful. They're like, could you ask the moms group? I was like, I'll be right back. Or I have a daughter. No, it's true. I have a daughter now, and she's always for the past couple of years. She's super into garage sales, and she and her friends gather up all their old treasures, and they set them up in our yard and sell them for money, which they love. Mm-hmm. And she's always like, put it on the moms group. take pictures, put it on the moms group, because it works.
Yeah, it does work. It does work.
Yeah.
Well, Mo, I would love to hear about your creative journey of how you got into directing in the first place, how you got into writing.
Okay.
I did listen to your episode on Leonora's podcast, Mothering Heights, but that was so long ago now.
Okay.
And I thought, should I go back and re-listen to it? And I was like, no, I want to hear it fresh from Mo.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, everybody has a story, and especially creative people. Of how they came to discover that was something they needed in their lives. Mine is a little, I guess it's not that unusual, but it's unusual, I guess. I grew up on a hippie commune in Tennessee.
Oh, wow.
Called The Farm. It was like a subsistence farmy, like vegan. I like to describe it as, it's kind of like tie-dyed Amish. That was my childhood. So it was vegan. We grew a lot of our own food. We had outhouses. It was large. It was like, I think at its height, it was 1,400 people.
Oh, wow.
And it was kind of a bubble community in Tennessee that is famous because it was the largest, longest running hippie commune in American history.
Oh,
it ran for over 20 years, but it's also famous, and this is kind of more important to my story. It's also famous because it was responsible for the rebirth of the home birth movement in the United States. Yeah, they're very famous for their midwives, and there's some books came out of there. But my mom in particular was a midwife, and that was I always had kind of a tribe of women around me,
That's wonderful.
even as a little kid. So that broke up, as communes tend to do, and we moved out of Tennessee, and I hadn't really interacted with we went out off the commune, but I hadn't lived in like a normal society, and I was a child, headed into middle school, and we moved up to Northern California to a little town called Forestville.
Okay.
Mom, dad, all my siblings, and it was like an immigrant experience, I think, in a lot of ways, because it was such a culture shock.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right? So
you grew up in America, but you didn't grow up in like the culture of America.
No, it was a microcosm, and it was definitely its own scene. And so when we got to public school, my siblings and I, there was so much, we didn't really understand the currency, like the social currency. We didn't understand the language. We'd grown up without money. Like, we got our clothes from a barrel marked with our age and size, right? So we didn't know, like, right. It's a very different kind of childhood.
Yeah, very different. Yeah.
So we were trying to figure it out. And one of the things that really kind of opened cultural windows for us, for better or worse, was film. And my sisters and I would take the bus from, Forestville into Santa Rosa. We'd go to the Coddingtown Cinema. We'd go to the first movie of the day, and we'd pay for that ticket. And it's terrible. And then we would stay all day. And when the movie was over, we'd hide in the bathroom, and we'd go to the next movie that was starting, and we would see everything. And then we'd take the bus home. And I just fell in love with filmmaking.
Oh,
I just fell in love with filmmaking. I remember feeling like I was doing research, because I kind of was, but also it was just storytelling and what was possible. And it wasn't until much later, it wasn't until undergrad that I realized, I think, that it all clicked together, that there were people behind those stories, that was a job, and that I could be a part of that. But that was my initial contact with filmmaking, and it just became a passion.
That's really cool. So when you were on the commune, did you guys have any like storytelling incorporated? Like, would the parents tell stories, or did you guys get to do any theater or puppetry?
There's a lot of theater, and there was a lot of music, and there were films occasionally. Like the first movie I ever saw was Alien.
Oh, wow.
And somebody got a projector and a 35 millimeter print in the summer, and everybody carried their couches out into the meadow, and they had a double feature, and it was Alien and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And that was my very first movie, but it wasn't like, we just consume movies now, right?
Yeah.
My daughter is so obsessed with Vidiots, which is just down the street from us, right?
Yeah.
And it's every night, what are we going to watch? And she goes and picks out, and it's all there. I didn't have access like that. So it wasn't until after the commune.
Yeah, that's really neat. It's so cool how it just kind of opened up your world to storytelling. And like, sure, okay, maybe you shouldn't have been sneaking into every movie theater, but at the end of the day, it served a greater purpose.
I mean, I can't remember, but I like to imagine that the probably teenagers who worked at Coddingtown Cinemas at that moment, they knew, and we were so poor. Like,
they didn't care.
These little, like, ragamuffin, poor, like, weirdly Amish hippie kids.
Yeah.
Who were just, like, scouched in the back of the theater. I'm sure that they turned a blind eye. I don't remember ever being confronted, not once. So thank you for that kindness.
Yeah. That was a very kind gesture, which set you off on a great career.
Which set me up, yeah.
So then you said that you went to undergrad. Did you go there with the purpose of studying an art degree of some kind, or what was your plan?
I went to UC Santa Cruz, and I went because it was in-state tuition, and because it was within driving distance of my family, and I felt like I needed to be able to get them if they needed me. Like, I didn't want to go too far.
Yeah.
We were very tight. And so I went to Santa Cruz with the intention of studying science. I have a passion for science.
Okay.
And I was, I don't know, I was kind of knee deep in chemistry and biology. And then I started realizing that there were these elective courses in film history,
Mm-hmm.
and every free spot in my semester I would like pack with film courses. And then all of a sudden it just kind of hit me, and I was like, oh, I'm fighting to try and get time in these classes, and this is actually something that I really want to do. So I
Yeah.
swapped.
So then you switched your degree. And then from there, when did you start making your first projects? Did you did you get a master's or go to film school?
I did. I got a master's at UCLA. I got out of
Okay.
UC Santa Cruz, and I moved up to San Francisco, and I worked for a while at a place called BAVAC. Do you know BAVAC? Bay Area Video Coalition. It is very cool. It's a nonprofit, and it's resources, basically. They have
Oh, wow.
edit resources like edit bays, and then they have classes and training, but its mission is really, it's a little bit communist. It's really like, I was like, there's a thread. It's bringing the ability to make films to everyone. So I worked there for a while, but you don't make much in a nonprofit. And I also worked as the night receptionist at the Bohemian Club, which is a whole nother story. But basically I was just barely getting by. San Francisco was expensive, and I was scraping by, and I started to realize that I was never, ever going to have any money or free time to make films. And so I applied to UCLA and got in, which was great because it was the only place I applied. and then came down for film school, and I got my master's at UCLA, and I stayed.
Yeah, and from there, you just stayed. That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And was your family supportive of you pursuing this art?
Yes, they were. I mean, my mom was a midwife, and she then became an elementary school nurse, and my dad was a carpenter. They were very happy with me trying to get into higher education, and basically kind of anything I did was all right with them.
Yeah. Just a little side note. I had an early experience with a midwife because when I was about 9 or 10, one of my uncles, he had married a woman who already had a few kids, and then they got pregnant together, and she had a midwife, and they did a home birth. And I had never, I didn't know that was a thing. Yeah. And I remember my mom was like, well, Maggie's in labor. So, they're laboring up there. And I didn't actually live in a commune, but we joke that my family lives in a commune because we have about 6 or 7 acres that's all connected, and our houses are all connected. So I would just run up, through the farm up to my grandfather's house, and my uncle was living in his guest house there. So I ran up there, and I remember my uncle coming out, and he looked all stressed out, and he put his hands in his hair, and he was just like, she'd been laboring for a really long time at that point. And I saw that, and I stopped mid-track, and I was like, oh, this is serious business. I shouldn't be here. Just something in my little 9-year-old, 10-year-old body knew, you are not supposed to be here. And I turned around and I ran home.
Kids, that sounds exactly like my childhood, Lisa. And two, kids are so quick. We think that kids don't know. Yeah. They read like that. You read the situation. You were way above my pay grade. Yeah. And I am leaving.
Yeah. But I remember my family was like, she's having the baby at home.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to say that they were being judgmental, but they were just kind of like, I don't get it.
No, I mean, of course. We kind of do what we're taught, and you only think what's possible is what you've seen before. It's it's understandable.
Yeah.
When I didn't have my baby at home, and part of the reason was because my husband wasn't comfortable with it.
Yeah.
That's not his father. He's from Canada. His father was a doctor, a skin doctor, and he was really nervous about what was going to happen and how it was going to go. And I was like, well, I'd love to be in my own bed, but I'd also love for my husband to be relaxed and feel safe.
Yeah.
And I'll be relaxed and safe wherever I am. So we had her at Kaiser.
Yeah. I
with
mean,
my mom as the doula.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
And my mom, she has a really beautiful take on it. She's like, if you have a healthy baby and a healthy mom, there's no wrong way to do it. Like there's an end goal, and people get very caught up in like, did the birth go right? And she's like, well, births are what they are. If mom and baby are okay, then you did it right.
Yeah. That's really a great way to do it. I think I know our kids are similar ages, and so I think especially during that time there was a lot of pressure to like do it right. And I'm sure it's still on moms. I have some other friends who are having kids now, and I know that they still go through some of that, but like I think more and more doctors are saying like, just take it for what it is. Like I like the idea of having with my 4-year-old, it was like, okay, this would be the ideal outcome, but if this doesn't happen, this is okay, and this is okay, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And as long as, like you said, as long as mom and baby are healthy, then we're all good.
We put so much pressure on ourselves as women and then mothers. It's hard. It's hard. And I feel like the idealized mother situation is a myth that we got sold. And I see a lot of women beat themselves up, especially in those early mothering years.
Yeah.
When they're figuring out how to do it and feeling like they're not living up, or it's tough.
So
film.
Going back to film.
Film.
Yeah. So how did you get going with your first projects? I know you've gone on, I was looking through your resume and looking at your website, and I see you've had so many accolades and been able to participate in so many different wonderful programs. The program with Ryan Murphy, or sponsored by Ryan Murphy. I would love to hear how you were able to jump into those programs and your experience as a female director, because I know that's been a hot topic, and we're trying to get more of the female directors out there. So I'd love to hear more about that.
I was thinking about your podcast of making it after 40 in like kind of relationship to female directors. And I was like, I don't know any female directors who make it before 40. And part of that is because it's a hard job to get because it's a really lovely job. Yeah. But I think that women either put on themselves or society puts on them that you have to be kind of, how do I put this? You have to be twice as qualified.
Yes.
We do all the things. We do school, we do shadowing, we do programs, we do, we really kind of jump through all the hoops so that we become kind of undeniable in terms of just seizing opportunity. Yeah. I never want to walk into, I have plenty of times walked into a room where someone is like, well, why are you? And it's like, I just empty my pockets. I'm like, well, this program, that program, this degree, that award. Like, I think that's part of it.
Right.
But that sounds bitter, and I'm not, actually. I'm not. I'm very grateful.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure it's also, you have a very kind of soft appearance and soft energy and presence. Yes. And so people can mistake that for weakness. And softness does not mean weakness. That's just
I love you so much. Yeah. I feel like I'm explaining that to the world on a daily. It's just, soft. It's much harder to walk through the world soft and kind. It does not mean weakness. And that's my directing style as well. I'm not a shouter. I'm not going to try and dominate. I think of filmmaking as the director is in the leadership position, but really it's a barn raising, and everybody has a part to play. And if you're in a leadership position, then the goal is to embolden people and make space so that people can do their best work and really make you look good.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, what were you asking? Oh, programs. And how did that happen?
Yeah.
I applied. I constantly am working. I had a film teacher at UCLA, Becky Smith, and she was like, if you're not getting rejected daily, you're not even trying.
Oh.
And I really took that to heart. And I think there's not a day where I'm not doing something. And a lot of times that something is applying to programs and getting rejected.
Yeah.
So like, if you go, and this is so true for everyone, if you go to the website or you go to the resume, what you see is all the accolades and all the things that I did get. What you don't see is the mountain beneath that of things that I attempted and didn't get. And I especially like to remind young women who are coming up, like, just keep trying. Some of those programs I applied to several times before I got in. You just keep trying.
I've heard that sometimes it takes many attempts. One of my past guests was talking about that they had been working. Oh, I think it was Amanda Dybert. She was saying that she was coaching someone or mentoring someone who's trying to get in as a writer, and the person had applied to a certain writing program, one of these fellowships at one of the networks, and they didn't get in. But I think it was just a few weeks, maybe a month later, they offered her a job. So it was like she wasn't good enough for the fellowship, but she was good enough to get a job. So her point was just like, hey, these things, they come and they go, and it is not a reflection of your talent or anything. It's just like that's who they picked this year. And yeah.
Oh, especially, yes, festivals and programs are like that.
Yeah.
But even if you're trying to build, like if you have a very solid goal in your head, like I want to direct on this level of project, and you hit no's, then you just kind of turn that around, ask yourself, well, why no? What piece am I missing? And go get that piece and then come back.
Yeah.
No is not eternal. No is just right now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is very true. And it's funny what you said. What you said right now about how most directors that are female don't really get started until 40 or so, or don't find the success. I find that it's funny that you said that, because I am finding that to be true. A lot of the directors that I follow on Instagram that I know of, a lot of these TV directors, they are either in their late 30s or they're in their 40s, and they've had careers as actors or writers. They've had to prove themselves in other ways before they're given the opportunity to prove themselves as a director.
I mean, that we know, you and I know, and probably all of your listeners know, the statistics are terrible. It's 10% of directors, I think, are women. And if you chop that into any smaller identity group, like minuscule amount of them are Black women, a minuscule amount of them are Filipino women. It's very, very hard to break in as a woman, it's very hard to break in, period, is the truth. And then if you don't fit the traditional mold for any of those reasons, your gender, your sexuality, your race, it becomes even harder.
Yeah. Do you find that it's having your own work, having your own scripts that you've written is essential to be able to break in, or is that just
It was for me. It was essential for me to write and direct, and part of that was because I don't really need permission to write, and I needed that outlet, that creative outlet. And it gives you a certain amount of power. If you own a story, if you created a story, if it absolutely came from you, it's harder for anyone to say, you can't have it.
Yeah.
Although that conversation still happens. It still happens to me. Last year, someone was like, you wrote this great script. Are you sure you want to direct it? And I was like, yes.
Wow. They wanted to give it to somebody else to direct, or?
Yeah. People will always try and part you with your great script. I was like, oh, I didn't write it for you, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did motherhood come into what's the word I want to
Oh,
say? Um
how did those two things coexist?
yeah, I don't know why my brain is like dropping
That
words right now. Like
I'm with you.
how
I hear you.
how is
I knew exactly what you
yeah,
were
how
asking.
has motherhood influenced your art or not? I guess, or
Um,
your approach to making art, because I think sometimes it may not influence the content. It just may approach your influence your directing style or the way that you speak to people, you know?
well, both of my features, uh, there are threads of stories of motherhood very prominently
Yeah.
in them, and I think
Hmm.
young children and babies. The first one's all about trying to get pregnant.
Hmm.
So I think part of that comes from I just grew up in a sea of pregnant women. So,
Right. Right.
so those stories make sense to me.
Yeah.
But, in terms of how motherhood coexists or interacts with my creative self, and this goes back to, the way in which new mothers tend to beat themselves up early in being a mother, like just after having a baby. I'd finished my first feature. I did the festival circuit pregnant,
Okay.
and went all around, did great. It went to Slam Dance. It sold at Slam Dance,
Oh, wow.
and to IFC, which was great because it was a year when nothing else was selling, and I felt really good about that. But I had to deliver the feature at the exact same time that I had to deliver the baby. So that I had like this calendar
Oh.
of deliverables. Like if you make films, you need this, you need the mix, you need the stems, you need this. There's all these deliverables that are literally called deliverables.
Yeah.
And then I had the big X on the due date for the baby, and they were like neck and neck, where I would be talking to the folks at IFC, and I'd be like, well, when I deliver, and they're like, the baby or the film? Like, they were confused. And I got the film delivered to IFC, and then I delivered the baby, and then after that, I just felt this intense pressure where I was like, I just achieved a life goal, which is I made a film and I sold it, and now it's in the world. And I was so scared to lose momentum, which is something that happens in creative careers. Like you have to continue to build. So I was so scared to lose momentum that I didn't really give myself a break to just be a new mother. And I remember like nursing, which was hard, and typing scripts with one hand. Like,
oh my God.
Like, I have to have something ready, and really pushing myself and discovering my mom had many children. And I thought, well, she did this and I can do this, and it's going to be easy. And I had this vision of myself, like tying the baby to my back, and I'd be on set with this like infant. And that was not at all my experience. Yeah. It was much harder. My baby didn't want to sleep anywhere except for her bed. So we barely left the house for the first 6 months. And she wasn't a sleeper. So I barely slept. And I remember just feeling chewed up and very scared about where and how to make creative space in that new role. Yeah. And the nice I had some great conversations with my mom, and she was like, you just need support, which I think is true for every mother. Yeah. And then the nice thing is now I have an older child, and all of that time, it comes back. Yeah. It's right. Like it's just it's a period of time. It's just a little period of time. And a lot of that creative energy and space comes back into life. And now she's my number one cinephile fan. You know, she's super into movies, and she is often in her room working away on her own story, and very supportive. Like the currency of the house is very much storytelling, and she's a part of it. And I genuinely get something from her in that, because there's this newness and passion to her. It's like she just watched her first Hal Hartley movie the other night.
Okay.
Do you know who that is?
Okay,
you have to watch a Hal Hartley movie.
Okay. Yeah.
But she's obsessed with Sofia Coppola. She just watched her first Hal Hartley movie.
Yeah.
And I am getting to, with her and through her, rediscover my original passion for film.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
And that's part of the gift of being someone's parent, is that you kind of get to back up and revisit these like really pivotal moments. And you're not a child, but you're in the realm of that excitement. And it's really lovely. So yeah, sorry. Creatively, she's a blessing. She's a blessing. She's constantly bringing me new perspectives and new energies and new music and film and thoughts, new ways of looking at things.
Yeah.
And all of that, I think, is great if you're an artist.
It's wonderful because you kind of get to like get a taste of that magic that first time watching something through them because you know it's their first time. Yeah. Yeah, that's wonderful. I love that you shared about how it comes back, you know, because I can relate to that so much with having a 13-year-old and a 4-year-old. When my husband and I chose to have a baby, my husband is my second marriage. And so we wanted to have a child together. And so when we chose to do that, I was really worried about not getting to do my dreams. I had spent so much time as a property manager and not doing what I wanted to do and raising my first child. And then, you know, they were getting older and I thought like I had gone back to Second City and graduated through Second City and it's like, I have a rep now. And like, you know, and I just pushed myself so much when my 4-year-old was like a little baby. And then we were in COVID and I'm like, I got to make something happen.
Oh,
and
COVID's the worst.
I know. And then I'm just like I was like trying to push myself like as if I'm going to run out of time. And I'm in a pretty good place right now where I realize like there is no time limit. And even with this podcast, I've been going for a year and it fills my cup so much. I love doing this podcast and I love talking to people, but I've come to the point where I was so afraid to like take some time off because I was worried I was going to lose that momentum. And this month I've had to say like, no, you've been going for a year. It's okay to take a couple weeks off. Your listeners will still be there. And if they're not, then you'll find other new listeners. I'm trusting that this is just the flow of things because it's better for me to give myself that break and just trust that if it's for me, it'll be there.
I think that is so smart. There is no such thing as constantly creating.
Yeah.
You have to pause. You have to sleep. You have to eat, you have to rest, and you have to recharge whatever it is in you that's creative. It's not always just putting out.
Yeah.
I think that's really smart. Forgive yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you're human. You have to rest.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't live off of 4 hours of sleep or 5 hours of sleep. I need 8. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you find that it's easier for you to find the balance with your creativity now that you're older, or is it? Yeah.
I think it's probably both. I think I feel, whether it's true or not, sometimes clearly I just told a story. I felt like I was running out of time when I was much younger.
Yeah. Yeah.
The fear is like, how many more movies can I get in? And am I running out of time? And I talk to so many women. No one's ever where they want to be. Am I where I want to be when I should be? Is like is it easier? In some ways, because I'm clearer about what I want and don't want. I walk away a lot quicker than I used to.
Yeah.
If things aren't working.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it is really good.
Yeah, that is definitely one of those benefits that come with age. You just like, you know, you don't put up with much crap.
I've seen this before.
Yeah.
This doesn't end well.
Yeah.
Let's just go our separate ways real quick.
Yeah.
I feel like, and I also have over the years built really great relationships and networks of support. But yeah, I guess it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah. Do you find it harder? Well, let me think about how I want to phrase this question. we've already talked about how it's already hard enough being a woman, and that it is hard
Yeah.
to be, or that you don't really get the opportunity until you're 40 because you've had to prove yourself. But now, as you continue to age, do you feel like people listen to you more? Or are they starting to get like to a new phase where they're like, oh, now you're an old lady. I'm going to dismiss you.
We are so damned. The poor
I know,
people.
right?
It's like, I know. I try to explain this to my daughter. I was like, society wants you to think that the only moment that you're acceptable is between basically 16 and 22.
Yeah.
And we have these long, beautiful lives.
Yes.
And we are acceptable all the way through.
Yes.
And exciting and have so much newness to bring.
And interesting, even
And
more interesting
yes.
as you age.
Well, the problem is, yes, that happens. I see that happening. I haven't felt that particularly to me, but I do see it happening to older women.
Yeah.
Who are my contemporaries by not so few years.
Yeah.
Especially Hollywood. So much wonderful in Hollywood, and then also lots of good broken stuff. Women who let their hair go gray.
Mm-hmm.
That I've seen that. People get dismissive. People treat them invisibly. So there's like a moment where you get a little bit of like, I'm like, I've seen people die and I made a person. So if I walk on set, don't mess with me. Like I know some stuff.
Yeah.
And I do, it's coming out of me, but there is a gravitas to having lived. And it's easier to command a little bit because I won't be challenged in the same way maybe I was when I was younger. Yeah. But I do feel like, the invisibility of aging out. Yeah. That is definitely part of this industry. Yeah. On the flip side, I shadowed, which you know what shadowing is, right? Yeah. Something else that lots of directors do, specifically a lot of women I know. Yes. But I shadowed and it was a gift. It was a gift and I'm so grateful for it. But I shadowed this director, Michael Schultz, who is deep in his 80s. Oh, wow. Deep in his 80s. Wow. A super talented Black man. He's been working for so long and is vital and making television and like the television schedule is grueling. Yeah. And this guy is on set making it happen. And it was really good for me because I was like, oh yeah. Yeah. This is mid. 40s is mid.
Yes, it really is.
40s is mid. And it's a lie that it's not.
Yeah. 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 And mid is like, that means you have so much time. You have so much time to make so much good art. Yeah.
Yeah. You have a lot of time to make good art. Yeah. Seeing artists like Michael Schultz, I was like, oh, right. I will be making things for a long time because it feeds me as a human. Yeah. It's important. It's who I am.
Yeah. I think we all need to hear that because there is so much expectation to be like, the height of your success when you're 30, and that just the number of people that happens to is so few. So like most of us, I think it can be for women and men, but I think most of us, we really don't find success until you get to about 40 because you don't really know yourself until then.
No, you don't. And also filmmakers, it takes 10 years sometimes to get a film off the ground. Yeah. So, so you're not going to be deep into your career in your 20s because you're going to be working on project number 1 and project number 2 might be 10 years away. Yeah.
And I wonder like how funding is going to be affected with everything that's going on right now. Like it was so hard to get funding as it is. And of course, people say like, the focus is now on TV and it's really hard to get any kind of feature made. But I hope that there's still room for the indie filmmakers.
What there is room for in the world is stories. Yeah. That we never grow tired of hearing each other's stories. And so whatever shape it takes, it might pop up in indie film or it might pop up in, podcasts. It might be like we love to listen to each other talk about what it's like to be human and watch each other figure out how to live life. So
Yeah.
I'm not worried about the currency of whether or not it's going to be features or it's going to be TV. It's going to be something, and you and I will be involved.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
I have to say,
whatever it is.
yeah, when I watched your reels, the thing that stood out to me, and like I'm so sorry I wasn't able to watch full anything.
No,
But
I think my second feature was streaming, and I don't think it's online anymore, which is
yeah.
another thing that's happening.
Yes,
Is
things are
films
getting
just
pulled.
disappear.
Mhm.
Yep, they just disappear.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
with the reels, I could see there was so much how do I want to say this? There's a boldness in what you put out there, and it was like boldly feminine and boldly sexual. You know?
It is boldly sexual. Thank you for that.
And I loved it. I was like, wow, there
love
is
you.
so much sex in this like 5 minutes, but it's in a way that's not like what's the word I want to say? It's not, it has value, it has purpose. It's like it's like female sexuality. It's not just like sex for sex. It's like, no, this is sexuality from a female's perspective. And it really, I was like, I gotta get a copy of these films because like I'm so curious.
That scene that you're talking about in particular, it's for people who are just listening.
Yeah.
It starts with two people walk into a dark room and then realize that there are three people in bed with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Two women and a man. And those actors were so brave, and I was so honored to have them be brave and work with me. But when we got to set, you rehearse before you shoot, and they all jumped in bed, and guess who they put in the middle?
The guy.
Yeah. And I was like, no, we're not doing that. There's a woman in the middle of this bed. And I saw them and they all went, oh. And I was like, yeah, this can be a different kind of story. I love shaking that up. And I think it's really important that women talk about sex because we get sidelined. And I have to tell you, taking that film around to festivals was interesting too, because it's a body sexual grown-up comedy.
Yeah.
About being a grown-up.
Yeah.
And my name is Mo.
Yeah.
And I would show up at festivals and no one would know me, and they'd be like, oh, the last time you had fun. And I'd be, I'm the director. You're the director? Because I'm 5'3", I'm curvy, I look like your mom.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, I'm the director of the sexy comedy. That's me. They're smoking pot and having threesomes. Yeah. That's me. And people would be really taken aback.
Yeah.
But I think it's important that people play in realms where you're not traditionally expected to go.
I think it's fantastic.
I really appreciate that.
I think it's wonderful. And I think it's a voice that I want to see more of in the world where it is like this sexuality, like without being like salacious. It's just, this is what we do when the cameras aren't rolling. We're being sexual, or, like we're sitting there with our tits out, and it's not just like in a beautiful, perfectly poised position,
Yes.
Yeah.
No, there has to be I think it comes back to that conversation with my daughter. Not that I'm having that conversation with my daughter, but the narrowness of what we think of as desirable as a society at large, which is a very young female body that's being objectified by a camera.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's all we do.
Yeah.
And it's so boring, and it has nothing to do with what we actually do in life.
And the answer doesn't have to be that we then objectify the men either.
No.
It can just,
I mean, it's not interesting to me.
No.
But yes.
Yeah. Because I think there's a tendency to want to like swing the other way. Well, now let's objectify all the men. But no, it doesn't have to be that way. Like I think the balance is really in the middle, where it's just like these are just human forms without clothing.
What is that? Nina Minquez has a film. Oh, and I wish I could name drop it right now because it's really great. But it's about the language of sexuality that we've been taught in film, and how it's very. I can't remember the name, so look up Nina Minquez.
Okay,
she's a doc maker, and she's got a film specifically about how we lens femininity and what that has done to us as a culture. Because film is where we come to talk about what it means to be human.
Yeah.
And if it all comes from one perspective and it's all shot in one way, it tells you that this is how we are, this is what we are, and it limits what you can be.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a lot of concern about with the Writers Guild strike and AI, like what that's going to do to everything. And, you know, let's say worst case scenario, it goes that way and AI is used a lot. And so other voices are no longer heard because AI is pulling from the existing, you know, kind of patriarchal. I think the answer is going to be people will start making their own stuff and maybe it'll be theater. Maybe it's going to be like, they'll be telling the stories that we actually want to see in live performances. And it's just, you know, so I think that like, even if AI does take over, our stories are still going to be out there. I don't think AI is going to take over, by the way. I think we're going to come to a resolution, but
I hope so. I am so union.
Yeah.
But yes,
yeah,
I hope it goes our way. And if it doesn't go our way, it's one of those like long fights because eventually it will.
I think in the end, the human voice, the human drive to tell stories and to share stories with each other is so strong that it'll push through. It might take a while, but it'll push through. And, you know, maybe people will revisit old films more. I don't know, but
that collective experience of sharing story is not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's not replaceable.
No.
By a Silicon Valley trained AI.
No. I know from
those little guys, those little pasty Silicon Valley guys are really broken stuff for us. Stop thinking stuff up, guys.
Just relax. Let us do our thing. You do your thing.
Oh, the internet's so well trained in patriarchy. It's a bummer. It really is.
It is. I mean, I understand why you're keeping your child off of social media, you know.
She is not on yet. That's for sure. But yeah, we'll see.
I did want to ask you, what do you look forward to as you continue to age in your career and tell your stories?
What do I look forward to? God, I'm such a greedy person. I'm always just looking forward to getting back on set with actors.
Yeah.
Everything just seems to be like, I just want to be with my people doing the thing.
Yeah.
What am I looking forward to? I would like to get paid more often.
Yeah.
That would be nice. Some stability. I don't know if that's a thing that you can do for yourself, but that would be nice. I just want to work more. But it's not I guess that's the secret about getting older. It's like, you're just you. This is not a wish that I didn't have at 20. At 20, I was like, I want to shoot more.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah.
That makes sense. Do you have any advice? Go ahead. Sorry. You're still answering the question.
Nothing. I just would like to continue to still get, there's not a film that I've made that I feel like is good enough. Mm-hmm. So I would like to continue to grow and be better.
Do you feel like that ever goes away, though? That feeling of like whether or not you did good enough?
No.
Yeah.
I haven't met anyone who's like, I'm right where I want to be and I'm making the perfect. I haven't met anyone who claims to have made their opus. Yeah. Like everyone is working towards, and that's part of the pleasure. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to still be doing that. Wait, what was your question?
Oh, my next question was what advice do you have for anyone who's coming up or maybe like looking to get into directing?
Looking to get into directing. Write. If you can't write, partner with someone who can write. Mm-hmm. It's very, very hard to say you're a director if you haven't directed. Mm-hmm. So if you haven't directed and it's something that you want to do, just give yourself permission to go make something. Mm-hmm. We have never lived in a time where the tools were so accessible. You can make a movie off your phone and just make something and start playing with it because you learn every time you do it. But you also absolutely need to have work to show if you want to convince somebody else that you can do the work.
Yeah.
And also practice, just practice.
Yeah.
Get together with the first movie I made, the first feature was actor friends dear actor friends who I'd worked with on a short, and they wanted to make something and I wanted to make something, and we got together and we kind of came up with the idea of like, hey, we want to play in this realm. And then we wrote the script. I wrote the script, and then we would rehearse the scenes, and then I would go back and rewrite the script. So we were engaged creatively with that process for a year before we ever had a camera.
Oh, wow.
And it was all directing.
Yeah.
So I would say, if you want to get into directing, start directing.
That's neat. I will attest to that. Like, just like mess around and practice. Like, even I'll do little short videos that I put on my Instagram of just like a certain character. I have a couple of characters that I'll do. And the first time I tried to do it, oh, it was so awful. I didn't know what I was doing. And it took me a couple of rounds to kind of figure out like, oh, this can be my format, and I can do this, and I can do like, yeah. And then even with editing, I learned to be more more ruthless with my cuts, and yeah.
Right. You learn every single time you get the opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
So start giving yourself opportunities, because you can.
Yeah. So I always ask my guests, what does making it mean to you now versus when you were younger? So what does success look like to you?
Oh God, it's so success now. I want regular health care, and
yeah. That's all we all want. It's just some health
That's
care.
all I want is health care. Just really good health care is success. Yeah. What does success look like? Getting to work with people who are at the top of their game.
Oh, yeah.
It's such a joy.
Yeah.
And I love, actually, I have several times in my career worked with people who it was their very first opportunity to do work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a joy too.
Mm-hmm.
But there is nothing like walking on the set and working with an actor or a cinematographer or a gaffer who has just a wealth of experience behind them, and getting to play with somebody like that is a joy.
Yeah.
So success is getting to play with, with real artists who are practiced at their game.
That's wonderful. I think that's the first time someone has said that in that way for that question.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. People have definitely shared, like, I want to tell stories with my friends or like with other people who are good at telling stories. But the way that you described it, that's I think that's really important, and that's really profound, because when you're working with people who speak the language already, and you know that you can put your trust in them completely, it just makes everything so much easier, and you can get into a flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's why you see like directors that I really admire and love continue to work with the same actors.
Mm-hmm.
Because you get to build on that experience.
Yeah. You build a rapport, you build a trust with each other.
Mm-hmm. You build a language. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that is such a great measure of success, to find your people who you can trust and work with in that kind of way. That's wonderful.
Oh, thank you. I hope that for all of us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have already worked with so many great actors, and maybe that's part of it too, with the advice is like, find your people who you can work with.
Oh, yeah. No, I know Olivia Wilde had kind of a bumpy ride, but I loved her no asshole policy. Like, really, we should just all if you find good people, work with them, and continue to make that a choice that you're invested in. Yeah. Work with good people.
Yeah. My day job is property management, and I think that is, I think there are a lot of skills that I use there that translate into this medium, and there's a lot of dynamics that also translate, because you have your team who is, like, whether it's the janitorial crew or the security or the building engineers who are keeping the building running. The no asshole policy is so important, because you all have to work with each other every day. Yes. And if you treat everyone with kindness and respect, you're going to get such better results out of your team.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if
Yes.
you're working at the fast food shop or you're working on a set. If you just operate with compassion and kindness and respect, you're going to get a much better product in the end.
Yes. Yes. At 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Aw.
This has been so awesome.
Thank you. It was a total joy, and I had no idea what to expect. And I love talking to you. It's really fun.
I've really enjoyed speaking with you too. Each time I bring a new guest on, and especially like there's so many women in our group, in our moms group, that I've never met in real life and that I haven't had the pleasure of speaking with in person. So it's always wonderful and magical each time I meet a new mom from that group. And I'll tell you what I really enjoyed about getting to meet you is like what we spoke about before, is that you have that softness about you, but I can tell it's like, don't mistake it for weakness, because I think it's, you also command such power, and, I don't know how to describe it. Like you bring a wealth of life experience and wisdom and knowledge into the conversation, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you. That is very kind to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, thank you again for taking the time to chat with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you all for listening to this week's episode. If you're interested in following Mo on Instagram, you can try. Her account is private, but you could try. She's at Adventures of Mo P. If you're enjoying the show, please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. And please share the show with your friends. Word of mouth is the best way to get the show out there. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Making It After 40, the number 40. And to catch up on what I'm doing when I'm not podcasting, check out my Instagram at Lisa Rodriguez. Thank you all for listening. Welcome back again, and have an excellent week.